You've seen it on the news. A truck, broken down on a remote highway, somewhere in northern Canada, middle of the night. The reporter says the driver was rescued after several hours. He's fine, end of story. But here's what the news never tells you. What actually happened in those hours. What the driver faced the moment the engine stopped. And why surviving a breakdown at minus 40 Celsius has almost nothing to do with fixing the truck. At minus 40, that's the temperature where Celsius and Fahrenheit meet. Most people know that fact. What most people don't know is what minus 40 actually does to a 40,000 pound vehicle and the person inside of it in the first 60 minutes after everything stops working. Because the engine dying is not the problem. The engine dying is just the starting gun. There are three things trying to kill you after a breakdown at minus 40. The first one is the cold itself, and it moves faster than most people expect. The second one is a decision the cold forces you to make, and the third one, something you either took care of weeks ago or you didn't take care of at all. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why the most dangerous moment in the winter breakdown isn't the breakdown itself, it's what happens next. The first thing an experienced driver does is not panic. It's not get out of the truck, it's not flag down a passing vehicle. It's think. He picks up his phone and calls dispatch, gives his exact location, the highway number, the mile marker, the last landmark he just passed. Because in northern Canada, on a highway with no exits and no towns, somewhere on the Alaska Highway is not good enough. If he can tell rescuers exactly where he is, they'll be searching, and the searching takes time. Dispatch confirms what he already suspected. Help is coming, but it'll take several hours. He writes down the time. Then he starts his assessment. Quietly, methodically, the way every experienced cold weather driver is trained to do. Does the truck still have electrical power? He checks the dash. If the batteries are holding, he has lights, a radio, and potentially the backup heater. If they're already weak, he needs to be careful about what he runs and for how long. Is the bunk heater working? This is the first real question. The bunk heater runs independently from the main engine. If it's functioning, he has heat. If it isn't, the time on the clock just got shorter. How much diesel is left in the tank? The bunk heater burns a fraction of what the engine uses, roughly 0.2 liters per hour. A half-full tank could theoretically run it for days, but only if the fuel itself hasn't started to gel. What's the weather doing outside? He checks his phone. Is the temperature dropping any further? Is the wind picking up? Is there a storm coming? Because a stationary truck in a whiteout is a different situation than a stationary truck under a clear sky. And then finally, he notes exactly where he is one more time. Drops a pin, sends it to dispatch, sends it to someone at home. The whole assessment takes less than 5 minutes. Now comes the problem most people don't think about. Because while the driver is making those calls, the truck was already changing around him. The cab still feels warm for now, but that won't last. And an experienced driver knows exactly why. Steel and fiberglass conducts heat at 400 times faster than wood. The walls around him are thin, the windows are large, and without the engine running, the interior temperature starts dropping almost immediately. In the first 15 minutes or so, manageable. The residual heat from the engine, the seats, the air itself buys time. Maybe 20-degree drop to 10 Celsius. Uncomfortable, but not dangerous. It doesn't stop there, though. Within 30 minutes, the interior is approaching zero. Within 45 minutes, in severe conditions, the cab can reach outside temperature. Not close to it, outside temperature, the same thing. That's minus 40 inside the truck. And outside, it's already worse. Because minus 40 degrees isn't just the air temperature. Wind changes everything. At minus 40, even with a light wind, exposed skin freezes in under 10 minutes. Step outside without the right gear on to check something under the hood, maybe to wave down a passing truck, and frostbite starts before you make it back to the door. But the cold isn't only attacking the driver, it's attacking the truck as well. Diesel fuel contains paraffin wax, a natural component that helps the engine run under normal conditions. Below minus 12 Celsius, and that wax begins to crystallize. The fuel turns cloudy at first, then the crystals grow, then they block the fuel filters completely. By the time the engine stops, the fuel system may already be compromised. And even when the rescue truck arrives, a diesel engine full of gelled fuel doesn't just restart. The fuel has to be warmed first. That takes time. And then there are the batteries. At minus 40, a truck battery delivers less than 40% of its rated capacity. The radio, the emergency lights, the backup heater, all running on less than half the power they were designed for. Every check of the phone, every light left on, the train is faster than he expects. A truck that can't move, even after the engine restarts, is still stranded. System by system, the truck is shutting down around him. And if the APU fails, the auxiliary power unit mounted to the frame, the backup designed for exactly this situation, there is one last line of defense: the bunk heater. A shoebox-sized unit, its own fuel line, burns 0.2 liters of diesel per hour, and that produces just enough heat to keep the sleeping area survivable. If that fails as well, there is no next system. There's only what the driver brought with him. The bunk heater is out, the APU is dead, the cab is getting colder by the minute. And then the thought arrives, the one every stranded driver eventually has: maybe I should walk. It feels logical. There was a gas station maybe 15-20 miles back. The road is straight, he has boots, he's got a jacket, he's walked further than that before. This is the most dangerous moment of the entire breakdown. Not because of the cold, not because of the dark, but because the thought feels reasonable. And at minus 40 degrees, reasonable decisions can kill you. Here's what actually happens when someone walks away from a stranded vehicle in extreme cold. Within minutes, the wind cuts through every layer of clothing. Not gradually, immediately. At minus 40 degrees, exposed skin, the gap at the wrist, the loose collar, an unprotected cheek, begins to freeze in under 10 minutes. Within 30 minutes, the first signs of hypothermia appear. Shivering becomes uncontrollable. Coordination starts to fail. Within an hour, disorientation sets in. At minus 40, in the dark, with no landmarks and no light, a person walking a straight road begins to drift. Snow looks the same in every direction. And here's the other problem. Rescue teams don't search for people, they search for trucks. A 40,000-pound semi is visible from the air. It shows up on dispatch records, on GPS, on the exact coordinates he sent 20 minutes ago. Rescues know where it is. They're driving toward it right now. A person walking in dark clothing through a snowstorm is invisible. The rule that every experienced cold weather driver knows, and that saves lives every single winter, is this: stay with the truck. Not because the truck is safe, it isn't anymore, but because the truck is findable. And findable is the difference between rescue and a recovery. The driver pulls his gear closer, checks the time, does the math on how long until help arrives, and stays. That was the second thing trying to kill him. The third one is different. It doesn't come from outside. It doesn't arrive in a moment of panic. It was already decided long before the engine even ever stopped. He stays with the truck. That was the right call. But staying with the truck is not enough on its own, because a stationary driver in a cooling cab with no heat and no backup systems is still in danger. The decision to stay buys time. What he brought with him determines how much of that time he can actually survive. The single most important item is a sleeping bag. Not a camping sleeping bag, not the kind rated to -5 Celsius that most people own. A sleeping bag rated to at least -30, stored within arm's reach of the bunk. Without it, hypothermia doesn't take the whole night. It can take less than 2 hours in a cab at -40. Next, thermal base layers. Not just regular clothes. Merino wool or synthetic thermal layers worn directly against the skin. They trap body heat even when it's wet. Cotton does not. Then, chemical hand warmers. Small, cheap, and often overlooked. Hand warmers keep the hands functional. That matters more than most people realize. And finally, the propane buddy heater. That's a small portable propane heater used only with a window cracked open to prevent carbon monoxide buildup. That can raise the interior temperature of a sleeper cab by 10 to 15 degrees within minutes. It's not a permanent solution, but as a bridge between a failed bunk heater and the arrival of help, it can be the deciding factor. The prepared driver has all of this. He's warm enough, uncomfortable, but alive and thinking clearly. The unprepared driver has a jacket and a half-empty water bottle. Now let's consider the vehicle itself. A passenger car in this situation survives maybe 2 to 3 hours before the interior becomes life-threatening. Small space, minimal insulation, no backup systems, no storage for gear. A pickup truck does a bit better. More space, easier to store equipment, but still no bunk and no integrated heating systems and no diesel reserve. A sleeper cab is in a different category entirely. It was designed to be lived in. The bunk area has more insulation than the cab. There is space for gear, food, water, and equipment. And a well-prepared driver in a sleeper cab with the right equipment can survive 12 to 24 hours or more while waiting for rescue. The truck didn't save him, the preparation did. Several hours later, headlights appear on the horizon. The rescue truck pulls up, the driver climbs out, stiff, cold, but alive. The engine gets looked at, the fuel system gets checked, eventually the truck gets moving again. And to everyone watching from the outside, it looks like a straightforward story. Truck broke down, driver got rescued, problem solved. But that's not what actually really happened. What actually happened is that the driver survived one of the most hostile environments on Earth. Here's the thing that most people miss about extreme cold. It doesn't reward courage. It doesn't care how experienced you are, how many miles you've driven, or how many winters you've survived before. It rewards preparation, quietly, without exception. The most dangerous truck driver at -40 is not the inexperienced one. It's the experienced one who stopped taking it seriously. Because experience creates confidence, and confidence in extreme cold can make you feel like the checklist is something other people need. It isn't. If you're a truck driver, what's on your winter checklist? And what's the coldest breakdown you've ever had to sit through? Drop it in the comments. I read every single one. If this video taught you something, hit the like button. It helps more people find the channel. Subscribe for more, and I'll see you down the road.